I'm Andrea Longman. I'm the Senior Vice President of the Media and Agency team here at Environics Analytics. And today it's my great pleasure to introduce Scott Mitchell, who's standing here next to me. In today's presentation, Scott will share how Vistar Media breaks through the clutter to deliver effective digital out-of-home, that's what DOOH, if you didn't know what that meant, digital out-of-home advertising using specifically 2 financial services use cases. So a little bit about Scott in case you don't know who he is and you're just joining us. Scott is the Managing Director for Canada for Vistar Media. He joined Vistar in 2017 and has launched the Canadian office and grown operations to a fully staffed team with strategic partnerships across the entire programmatic landscape here in Canada. So in this presentation, Scott's going to focus on programmatic digital out-of-home, including considerations for driving business forward, some of the learnings, some best practices, all exemplified through those 2 use cases that I mentioned at the front. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Doug. Sorry, I said Doug earlier. To Scott. It's good.
My fake middle name is Doug.
Awesome. Thank you. And if you have any questions, please hold them to the end. And if we have time, we'd love to talk to you. So with that, let's hand it over to Scott.
Thank you so much, and really excited to be here today. A number of great speakers on this morning. It seemed like a lot of productive discussions happening, so hopefully we can keep that trend on. Also, just a housekeeping note here, I hear the cookies are really good, so if you haven't had one, or if you missed the boat on that, I don't have any for you, but maybe you can scrounge them up later. So to the point, and obviously I'm Managing Director for Vistar Media Canada, and we're going to be talking today about breaking through the clutter and what that means from a digital out-of-home perspective, but also in relation to how data, measurement, and automation continue to drive the adoption for the software in this space and what this means for different brands. Quick note about Vistar, we are a programmatic digital out-of-home platform. We are focused only on the out-of-home space. When we built the software over 10 years ago, the focus was mainly just on bringing the benefits from the programmatic technology and focusing and harnessing the power that it has and bringing it into the out-of-home channel. And that's one of the goals that we had. Our software is used across the entire digital ecosystem. Agencies, brands, suppliers, and publishers all work with us, and we're trying to help them continue to integrate our software into the out-of-home channel to help them continue to grow their omni-channel efforts so that marketers continue to invest into out-of-home as well as continue to gain the benefits that the channel brings. Told you a little bit about that. We obviously focus on the out-of-home space, but let me bring you up to speed in terms of where we are today from an industry perspective and what that actually means. One of the biggest misconceptions about out-of-home is that people think of out-of-home as just billboards. If you talk to anybody and you say out-of-home or you're like, oh, I love that billboard, the correlation between them are almost synonymous. I'm here today to break that misconception. Out-of-home is so much more than just billboards. If you think of your commute to the conference today, you've had the opportunity to be exposed to multiple different types of contextual relevant environments that out-of-home can have an impact in terms of your daily journey. If you took the streetcar here, the subway, if you drove on the Gardiner, or if you're at the gym this morning, these are all different relevant placements that count as out-of-home. So as you start to think of the channel and remove that connotation that it's just billboards, you start to understand that it's really woven into your actual day-to-day lives and in terms of how you actually interact throughout the day and the opportunity for marketers to continue to lean into the channel in terms of reaching those people at the right time in the right place. The other misconception is that the capabilities have advanced significantly, or sorry, that's not a misconception. The capabilities of out-of-home have advanced significantly over the last couple of years. The technology has unlocked new ways to plan, buy, and measure out-of-home. If you think of the old silos of buying and planning out-of-home, they're no longer limited to the legacy tactics that were previously deployed, making it easier for marketers to integrate out-of-home into their existing strategies. The idea being to fully fold it into their omni-channel plans. So we want to get rid of this traditional way of thinking that out-of-home is stuck in the past and start to think of it in terms of bringing it forward into an omni-channel lens. And what does this actually mean? Well, this means for everybody in the room today that there's a huge opportunities for marketers to leverage out-of-home to bring data into the financial services and the case studies we're going to talk about, but bringing these data-driven financial services strategies to life. And it's not just for financial services, it's for every single marketer in the room today, agency and brand, to continue to think differently about the out-of-home channel. So what does this actually mean? Well, marketers can start to utilize and take advantage of these advanced capabilities. Think of when programmatic software technologies first came into the digital space many, many years ago. Some of the key benefits to that were things like having automation, a consolidated way for accessing all of your digital inventory in one place. We can start to see that into out-of-home now, and what some of those benefits are starting to come to light. Reaching the right people at the right place in the right time, using a unified data strategy, eliminating media waste. The list of benefits start to go on from these new capabilities that we've been able to bring to light. The flexibility. Think about having to swap creative out in an instance from the viewpoint of a channel that may not have already kind of fostered that idea. There you go. It's not a TV controller. I'm getting it wrong. The second, and one of the other most exciting things, and obviously quite fitting that we're here today talking about data, and obviously through partnerships like our partnership with EA, but we start to think of how data influences how marketers use it to reach audiences. We want to use data to reach the right audiences at the right time in the right place. Now, with data in out-of-home, we're actually able to understand these consumer movement patterns and work closely with partners to use Prism segments, for example, to understand how these consumers are moving. We can process it. We can understand exactly when and where to serve an out-of-home ad. So if we remove that idea of billboards and we start to think of out-of-home as a full channel, and now we start to layer data on top of that, you now start to get the idea that we can actually have a very meaningful connection with the consumers as they're making their way throughout their daily lives. One of the benefits and one of the key drivers that we're seeing in terms of adoption throughout the space for programmatic digital out-of-home and working closely with our partners at Environics is actually driving more cross-collaboration and bringing the benefits of using one data segment, for example, Prism, to power an entire marketing strategy. Bringing that back to that omni-channel lens for marketers and their viewpoint to include it in how they think of their actual out-of-home strategies. The second, and obviously something else that's really big amongst everyone's mind, is client retention. So if we start to think of using out-of-home in its full channel in terms of reaching audiences across every single venue type, and then we start to layer in data to better understand how these consumers are moving throughout the day, we want to prove that the data segments that you're actually running in out-of-home are providing value back to your channel. Now we can start to think of ways in terms of measuring this success. Did we actually help move the needle from a brand lift perspective? Were we able to understand if we saw a brand lift? I'm not sure what's happening. It's going on its own. It's not part of the presentation. And even though this is out of home, technically. Back to measurement, measuring the success of this presentation. There we go, stay. I'm going to put that there. We're going to move on, and I'm going to keep talking about it. But with measurement, being able to understand if you actually move the needle is really important. When you actually start to show clients and work closely with partners, you can understand that the investment that you're making in using data can actually yield something positive, and you can build client retention. We all want to build client retention, either it's with our direct consumers or with the partners that we work with today. And so measurement allows us to actually do that. You can measure things brand lift, foot traffic, purchase intent, all these different key metrics that we look for when we start to work with partners. So why does this matter? I think I'm going to hit the button, so we'll hang tight with me here. So why does this all matter? Well, we know that consumers no longer can be reached through a single viewpoint. And we know that out-of-home traditionally was almost always thought of in a higher funnel type of awareness metric. But what we're starting to prove and what we're starting to see is that that's not the case. Out-of-home is able to help continue to push every single aspect of the funnel, even post-exposure, and in terms of how you start to think about including into your actual marketing efforts. And in such, not to jump too quickly, but when we start to think of what everything we've just talked about, so we think about how automation is the ability to make buying out of home much easier, working with partners such as EA to drive data alignment in terms of bringing more unified ways to reach audiences and bringing out of home into your omni-channel marketing efforts. And then obviously from a measurement standpoint, proving that what we're doing is actually working. We've actually had a number of different really engaging partners that we've worked with in terms of when we've been able to actually prove that these strategies have worked. The most recent one that we're going to talk about right here is a top 5 bank that we've worked with. They've actually looked at the out-of-home channel from a traditional lens in the past and started to think of ways in terms of how they can actually bring it into a unified approach and that omni-channel lens that we've just discussed. They've had a number of different opportunities where they wanted to actually create a connection with their consumers, and it was in order to help kind of grow their personal banking division. They specifically wanted a marketing campaign that would generate awareness and increase consideration and intent to do business with personal banking agencies. I'm just going to back up for a sec. Fighting with this thing. So with that being said, some of the tactics that they wanted to do was they wanted to remove their single approach in terms of thinking of just billboards. And so they started to deploy multiple digital out-of-home formats. They included malls, universities, cinemas, office buildings, billboards, bus shelters, residential, and about another 5 other different ones. Removing that single channel approach and shifting the idea that they wanted to take in terms of now using data to better inform how to buy these different formats. How best are you going to reach your audience, and how best can we use the right data to reach them at that right time in the right place? So for this example, we used an Environics data set that was devised to reach a mature younger singles, couples, middle-aged, and large diverse families with empty nesters. Obviously, that's a little bit of a bigger demographic, but if we could look at that from a PRISM segment, and then you can start to think about how you could deploy that across your digital efforts, perhaps in your social efforts, or any other ways that you wanted to use it, and now we allow you to bring that into out-of-home, you can start to see how it starts to come together in terms of trying to bring that omni-channel lens. The results, as we're at this page here, we saw about a 5% lift, and I can't see that slide there because my eyes are bad, but over about a 68% of consideration. So from a very large brand to see some of these positive results, we're able to actually talk about what that actual story looks like and how a strategy can be deployed in a similar manner. Another example that we used was we partnered with another leading retail bank to focus on driving new account signups. Typically, when you think of signups, that's a much lower funnel attribution or a much lower funnel approach to a marketing strategy that may not have been included for out-of-home. Together, we decided to approach that by focusing on growing awareness for the bank and their products, and we wanted to deliver an action that would drive messaging. So to build awareness, we focused on reaching consumers and integrating the bank's messaging into their daily habits by targeting consumers along their journeys, reaching them at multiple different touch points like we discussed earlier, and then driving the message in terms of how they're actually reaching and going about their day. The bank had to focus on promoting their benefits relating to their grocery business or grocery purchases. So we could also target specific audiences towards active consumers and supermarket shoppers. So again, another tie to thinking about it from a a prism segment, perhaps it's another proximity targeting approach to it, multiple different ways in terms of how you can start to use data in terms of building out some of these more robust offerings. When we start to go through it, these results actually showed another huge win for the brand and continuing to point in the right direction that we're able to actually show a bottom line or a positive ROI for a number of different brands in terms of how they're engaging in terms of using data in the space. So lessons learned. If we think of the core pillars that we're driving out of home, and we think of the benefits that it brings to every single marketing plan, and then of course partnering and working closely with partners such as Environics or other data partners and measurement partners, we can see that that is the foundation in terms of how programmatic out of home or software and out of home is continuing to drive adoption for a lot of users. When we take a step back, and if we think about how we can actually target the right user at the right time, and we can bring the benefits of automation and a lot of the other marketing approaches that potentially would be taken in terms of creating this omni-channel lens, we can start to then focus on some of the other aspects of out of home that are also driven by data. We've recently been able to understand not only to serve the ad at the right time to the right person, but we can actually change the message of the ad based on a number of different data triggers. So if we know that you're a retail bank and you want to serve an ad within a particular proximity to it to remind people to sign up for their RSPs, or maybe push a credit card messaging, or maybe remind them of an offering that you're trying to get to, we can then actually change the creative to actually call it the specific distance it is to a bank. Maybe you're a retailer and you want to have a particular offer coming up for Black Friday or Cyber Monday, and you want to try and tell them about that specific offering. You can start to customize that messaging so that it relates to your consumer. So we start to pair the basis of the value that data brings in terms of trying to reach audiences at these right times in the right place, and now we can actually start to bring a creative aspect to it that layers in an additional approach that personalizes it again, continuing to talk to that consumer. Key takeaways. One, I'm going to learn how to use the controller. 2, programmatic digital out-of-home 2.0, as I've coined it, and I should put a trademark beside it, is coming. And by that, I mean it's the core competencies that exist. It's leaning in and working closely with our data partners, such as Environics, to continue to drive adoption for that. But the 2.0 is putting the creative at your forefront and allowing marketers to understand the true value of out-of-home when it starts to get paired with data. The other ones are equally important in terms of just reiterating in terms of an automation standpoint. Understanding that you can consolidate a buy through a platform, similar to how you think of using your digital efforts in other channels. You have the ability to then understand if your investment was working for you. Did you actually move the needle in terms of making, understanding more intent towards your brand? Did you understand a lift towards your brand? I'll caveat though and say, with measurement studies and being an out-of-home channel, we understand that we aren't the be-all and end-all. Of course I'm biased and I'm talking about out-of-home, but it is a smaller indicator to help better understand what those budgets do represent when you are making that investment. And then the last one is continue to look and think about flexibility. How can we continue to innovate in the space? And is dynamic creative one of those? Is the ability to bring in and work closely with partners to create more custom data segments for your first-party data, or through custom prism segments. How more can you continue to lean into the out-of-home channel? And with our partners in the case studies we walk through, we've been able to see some really exciting client retention through that and to build future campaigns together. Thank you.